Wegen technischer Probleme wurde der Countdown auf dem Raumfahrtbahnhof Kourou in Französisch-Guyana wenige Minuten vor dem geplanten Abheben abgebrochen. Ein neuer Versuch ist für die kommende Nacht zum Montag vorgesehen. Beim bereits 104. Start einer Europarakete soll der Kommunikationssatellit Intelsat 804 in eine Erdumlaufbahn gebracht werden. 36.000 Kilometer über dem Indischen Ozean wird er Telefongespräche und Fernsehprogramme übertragen.
Well, greetings again, everybody, and welcome back to Kourou, the home of Ariane, for tonight's live broadcast of Arianespace flight number 104, take 2, with the Intelsat 804. I'm Joshua Jampol again. We hope you had a pleasant night. I say take 2 because last night we had a first try, but we were stopped 3 times by holds in the countdown. Once just before the synchronized sequence, and twice in the synchronized sequence. And we had to slip the launch 24 hours because by the time we got to the third problem, we didn't have enough time left in the launch window. So that's why we are back. First, want to explain what the problem was in more detail and tell you what exactly held us up. And then we'll tell you everything that has happened since we left you. It was 10:30, roughly, local time last night. There were 3 minor incidents which, when added together, put us out of the window, despite the fact that the Intelsat people had extended the window a full 16 minutes, which I think was the maximum that they could do. To take them in order, the first hold at minus 6 minutes and 27 seconds, just before the automatic sequence. What happened was, briefly, the onboard computer in the vehicle equipment bay found some incoherencies between 2 measurements in the liquid oxygen in the third stage, and this was due to some small variations which occur around the measurement threshold anyway. But the OBC, the onboard computer, sent these incoherencies to the ground, and since they did not match up, we went red. And the reason it lasted so long, it was a full 25 minutes, why was that? Well, there was always a reconfiguration after any red. We empty the data and go back to a virgin state, but it was decided last night, in light of what had happened, to reconfigure more completely, which is why it took 25 minutes. You can see tonight all is green. We are on time and on target for a launch in just under 10 minutes now. We're coming to a little earlier than we did last night. The second hold, which happened during the synchronized sequence at minus 35 seconds, there is something called the automatic reds synthesis mode. Now, this is information sent from the control center here in Mission Control in Jupiter over to the CDL, which is the Launch Management Center. We had some shots of those crews last night. What actually happened was a wrong message got sent. When we are in this mode, any red will automatically stop the countdown. What happened, in fact, as was explained to us, was the red flashed momentarily and erroneously here for just a second, then went back to green here. But by that time, since we were in automatic mode, it was already too late because it had been sent up to the CDL where their computer saw it and automatically stopped the countdown. So tonight, to remedy that, we are not using the automatic system, which I believe is a new one. Instead, we are going to stay on the manual or the visual mode. All right, the last thing, the third thing that went wrong also happened during the synchronized sequence at minus 27 seconds, even closer. This concerns a valve which watches the pressure in the liquid hydrogen. Now, the calculator, computer saw what it believed was a leak. There was higher pressure in the feeder arm of the liquid hydrogen in the third stage. It was not serious. It was acceptable. The problem was that we were at the end of the launch window by then, and we had no time to reconfigure and start a third synchronized sequence, so the call was made to delay 24 hours. Again, the thumbnail sketch of the launcher, which we had yesterday, we'll give it to you briefly again. 3 powered stages for Ariane. The first 2 with storable propellant, and the top stage with the cryogenic fluid. That's 10 tons of liquid hydrogen and oxygen. And this is where the pressure problems were found last night. Everything, however, has been patched up and fixed, and we are ready to go. What we would have needed last night actually was about 10 minutes. Once we found the problem of the pressure, the third problem, we would have needed 10 minutes, and we were just at the end of the window. So last night, what was done was the third stage was emptied. We're still shooting the same satellite, of course, built by Lockheed Martin, Intelsat 804. 7 minutes to go. Into a transfer orbit. That's Ariane's mission, and the satellite on its own gets up to the geostationary orbit, which you see here, the red one. I don't think the laws of physics in our universe would allow that green square orbit there, but maybe they know something that I don't. Anyway, you can see where we're taking the broadcast tonight. Hello to all our friends and the industrial partners and the Space Midnight Radio Show in Munich. Last night, just to continue, the third stage was emptied. The first and second stage were not. They still kept their storable propellant. The incoherence level for the LOX liquid oxygen measurement was enlarged, and we'll get back to that in just a minute. There's the flight directorate of the Arianespace people and the Knest people there. We're going to use the manual red, as we mentioned, for the synthesis thing, and the valve was checked out.
12 de DDO. Attention pour le début de la séquence synchronisée.
DDO is going to call out the synchronized sequence now.
Top, H0 moins 6 minutes.
Okay, so we're now in the synchronized sequence for the first time tonight, hopefully the last. The valve that was watching the pressure in the liquid hydrogen was checked and okayed for flight. Now, the reason that we can accept these higher thresholds for the pressure is thanks to a functional analysis which is based on all the data from the previous launches. Now, coming up a little later, you're going to see something called the CVI, which is the Immediate Visual Control Room, where all the telemetry from the launcher comes in. And when it's stored there, you'll see how it's stored. And this will allow, there's Terry Edwards and his Intelsat people next to him. And you'll see all the data from previous flights can be consulted. This is how we can see the relationships between launches and enlarge the average thresholds of things like pressure. The CDL people tonight are doing more or less what they did last night, making their final checks. The computers that stopped and started the countdowns yesterday, you can see them. Ariane on the pad, waiting. We are green so far, no problems. The weather has not been as sunny as yesterday and the day before, but so far so good. We mentioned the emptying of the third stage. The gantry tower was also drawn back over Ariane. You remember you saw pictures yesterday of the gantry withdrawal, and you're going to see some more coming up in just a second. Terry Edwards and Dave Griffiths and Bill Benders of Intelsat. Here are the pictures of gantry withdrawal again. Last night, the gantry tower was pulled back over the launch vehicle. Now, this all takes about 6 or 7 hours. What was done last night was a complete reversal of the filling process. You can see the feeder arms there into the third stage. We were very lucky in that those arms had not been opened. Now, that happens at -5 seconds. So we could drain the liquid hydrogen and oxygen right out by the same means, and the propellants went right back into the storage tanks, and we're going to use the same propellant tonight. Once those arms have been opened, you can't do that. You have to open vents in the third stage to let the fuel out that way. That takes 16 hours, and all the fuel is lost. So in every anomaly, there is, of course, a silver lining. A tip of the hat to the people who did all that work last night. They worked through the night. A team of Arianespace people with the industrial partners. Up the CDL again. 3 minutes and counting down. So far, so good. This is a second crew, the people who did all this work last night. It's not the team that's working the countdown right now, the people that you're looking at. They are resting during this phase. As a matter of fact, they have bunks and things right under I think, a basement under the CDL. They are the same crew, however, that will begin to refit the pad after each launch. And I don't know if I started to mention that last night when I was blabbing on during the holds, but there are about 10 of them. And they spent the night at the CDL, and I will talk about them later. The satellite, meanwhile, last night was placed in a secure position, charging on its ground batteries. So, to recap, 3 minor incidents But, of course, strict control and management of everything is what you want. You really can't take anything for granted in this business. You have to stay vigilant. There's the DDO, and next to him is the mission director. I'll say a word about the DDO in just a minute, but let me finish about last night before that. You can always really, I think, learn from anomalies. Arianespace likes to take advantage of an anomaly to improve. Even minor things can help upgrade the product and the services, I think, and the Arianespace experience has been built up this way over the years, launch by launch. So, remember this. Let me give you this explanation again, because recall this is the last thing you're going to see. These are the feeder arms. This is where the pressure anomaly was found last night in the liquid oxygen. One arm is feeding the oxygen, one the hydrogen. To have liftoff, the arms have to open. And remember, the arms will open at -5 seconds, and then the computers will check out the pressure in the main engines and the boosters, which will be lit. And if the pressure is found to be all right, then we'll get the order.
À tous de DDO, attention pour moins 1 minute.
He's going to call out the 1 minute mark now.
Top H0 moins 1 minute.
Okay, we'll go. Spoke to the DDO, Bertrand Moncuquet, you can see on your screen now, just earlier, and I asked him what was it like for you last night. It was his very first to launch as a DDO. He said rough. He said I aged about 3 campaigns, but I learned a lot, he said. He's the first DDO actually to go through this sort of ordeal with 3 different reds on his first mission. So in the end, he was happy. Paul Miller of Lockheed on the left there in the striped shirt. 20 seconds. We'll let you watch the launch, and we'll be back with you once Ariane has cleared the tower.
À tous de DDO, attention pour le décompte final. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, top. Allumage. Décollage. Tous les paramètres sont normaux. Les paramètres sont normaux, la trajectoire est normale.
Well, as she breaks through the clouds, beautiful shots tonight, a nice clear evening. You can see the points of light, the 4 main engines, and the 2 outer rings, or the boosters. The Viking 5
Tous les paramètres sont normaux.
Everything is normal, says the DDO. You saw the launcher rise for about 16 seconds. That's the time she needs to clear ELA-2, the launch base. Then she tilts over. If you notice, there's a pure and simple reason why she tilts over. It's for better radar and telemetry control with the ground. That's the radar, the antenna on that side. The first stage will burn for about 3.5 minutes. Then it will be dropped in the Atlantic. The boosters,
tous les paramètres sont normaux.
The boosters will burn for about 2.5 minutes. We're just getting the rumble now of the sound of liftoff. 15 kilometers away, it takes this long to get down here. The boosters burn for about 2.5 minutes, then 5 seconds later they will be jettisoned. You will probably be able to see all that on the screen, because the
tous les paramètres sont normaux, trajectoire normale.
Everything is normal, says the DDO, because the night is so clear. The boosters will also be dropped in the drink. No part of Ariane gets reused. Wonderful pictures of liftoff. You were right there.
Tous les paramètres sont normaux.
With that close camera. Each booster is burning 39 tons of propellant. It's the same propulsion system as in the first stage, the Viking engines. There's something.
Extinction des 2 pales.
That's the booster burnout. Very clear picture.
Séparation des 2 pales.
And there the 2 boosters have been jettisoned. You can see the 4 points of light, the 4 main engines of the first stage. still burning 2 tons of fuel per second, roughly equivalent
Tous les paramètres sont normaux.
to 6 jumbo jets. Any Navy flyers out there, your F-18, its 2 engines each burns 35,000 pounds per second. The first stage will lift Ariane and give it, of course, the speed necessary for the mission. Stage is not unlike the gears of a car, I guess. I don't know if that's such a hot analogy, but...
Tous les paramètres sont normaux.
We're all normal. Now, this is a new slide showing the curve. We'll discover it along with you.
Extinction premier étage.
There's the first stage burnout.
Séparation premier étage. Allumage deuxième étage.
And there's the separation of the first stage and the ignition of the second stage. Now, you can see right in the middle of the screen, you can see the
Tous les
curve.
paramètres sont normaux.
You can see the curve, and there's a little dot that's climbing up the curve. That will be the trajectory of the launcher. On the right, some information. The T is time elapsed. You see 222 seconds since liftoff. The moyenne is the means of how the launcher has been being tracked at a certain computer. The S is I forget what the S is. Let's go to the A, which is the altitude, and the V is velocity. Now we're climbing up. I don't know if you can see it on here. It says quaff. That will be separation of the quaff, which you'll hear him call out. Called out by the DDO.
Séparation coiffe.
Right. There's the fairing, which has been jettisoned. Now it's jettisoned up here now. We're 114 kilometers up. Now why do we jettison the fairing now? Well, of course, satellites made to work
Tous les paramètres sont normaux. Trajectoire normale.
on the Earth and Earth conditions. There's a shot of what exactly is happening up there. This is why they're kept in clean rooms, and it's also why fairing can be dropped now, because the atmosphere is less harmful for the satellite. Second stage is burning 1 Viking engine. Ariane now moving at about 5 kilometers per second. We want to give you a little mass profile now, stage by stage. As Ariane drops the stages, it's curious, it's interesting to see what...
Tous les paramètres sont normaux. La trajectoire est normale.
When we took off, the total mass was 344 tons. And when we dropped the first stage, we were down to 57 tons. Cursor climbing up in the middle of your screen now towards SEP23. I don't know if you can read that. That's the separation of the second and third stage.
Extinction deuxième étage.
There's the second stage burnout.
Séparation.
Separation.
Allumage du troisième étage.
And the third stage has lit. And you can see what's happening up there, more or less. Retro rockets firing on the bottom.
Tous les paramètres sont normaux.
And acceleration rockets on the top. Now is a closer look at the curve. The Intelsat boys watching. Our mass total has changed again. Remember, total mass at liftoff was 344 tons. After first stage separation, down to 57 tons. After second stage separation, now
Tous les paramètres sont normaux.
17
Trajectoire normale.
17 tons. So you can see most of that is fuel, of course.
Acquisition par la station de Natal.
All right, we've just been picked up by the first downrange tracking station, which is at Natal, over the border in Brazil, where an agreement with the Brazilian government allows us use of those facilities. Some additional ESA equipment has been installed. Area now at about 222 kilometers up. The CSG's own radar, telemetry, and telecommand stations are enhanced by this series of downrange stations. This is the CVI that I mentioned, the immediate visual control room. This allows us to see documentation of part of
Tous
Ariane's
les paramètres sont normaux.
telemetry, which comes in. It gives us an immediate look at what's going on with guidance and attitude and engine pressure and speed. Third stage will burn for about 13 minutes, burning 10 tons of cryogenic fuel, which was used, cryogenic fuel, I don't know if I mentioned this yesterday, for the very first time anywhere outside the U.S. by Ariane's first launch, Flight 1 in 1979. It will push Ariane across the Atlantic, straight due south. She'll cross the equator roughly around 0 degrees longitude, I think just before.
Tous les paramètres sont normaux, trajectoire normale.
Everything is normal. We are doing fine. Normal trajectory. 7. Dave Griffiths on the phone, either with Washington or with his satellite crews here in the S1 buildings. You can see the cursor on the purple line and the pink cursor climbing up.
Tous les paramètres sont normaux.
The first mark on that curve, there will be X'd, H10, that's extinction of the third stage, also called the H10 stage. And then just above that is when Intelsat will be separated. Intelsat due to be separated at plus 20 minutes after liftoff.
Tous les paramètres sont normaux.
Everything is normal. We're on time and we're doing very well. We like to take advantage of this long third stage burn to talk a little bit about the satellite, stretch out a little bit. Before we do, I think it's a good time to go to our our Arianespace quiz. What do you say? Arianespace quiz. Question number 104. All right. You know tonight's launch is the 104th Ariane launch. Tonight's quiz, Arianespace question number 104. How many missions?
Tous les paramètres sont normaux.
How many of those 104 missions have flown from the launch base here, which is known as ELA-2? Again, the question. How many Arianespace missions have blasted off from ELA-2? We'll have the answer for you in just a minute. As a matter of fact, we have a second question prepared since it's Christmas time.
Tous les paramètres sont normaux.
That would give you a present. We may, they're planned. I can't promise that we're going to get to them for time reasons, but we'll at least do the first one. How many missions flown from ELA-2? While you're thinking, Ariane will soon see 20 years of service. 1999 will mark the second decade. Mentioned the first flight on Christmas Eve in '79, so Christmas here is always doubly festive. 2 decades means every month has its milestones, and December is no exception. There's a couple I just want to mention.
Tous les paramètres sont normaux.
On December 1st in 1992, Flight 55 put up a Superbird for Japan. Flight 81 on December 6th, 1995 was an Ariane 44L, delivered a telecom and an INSAT. Terry Edwards quietly.
Fin de visibilité Kourou.
We've just lost the visibility from the Kourou station, which is
Tous les paramètres sont normaux, la trajectoire est normale.
Which is quite normal. We're being tracked now by Natal. December 11th in 1988, Flight 27 put up an Astra and a Skynet. And December 16th, Flight 48 in 1991, a Telecom 2A and an Inmarsat. Inmarsat will be on the next flight in January. And finally, December 17th.
Tous les paramètres sont normaux.
December 17th in 93, Flight 62, Ariane launched the very first DBS satellite for Hughes. That was DBS-1. Flight 62 also put up TICOM-1. So there you are, the milestones for this month. How are you doing on the quiz? I think we'll give you a little more time.
Tous les paramètres sont normaux, la trajectoire est normale.
The third stage is going to be burning, I think, for another 7 minutes. I believe. Let me just check that for you. And then we'll talk a little bit about the satellite.
Tous les paramètres sont normaux.
Yeah, I think another 7 minutes is what we have. Let's talk a little bit about Intelsat and the Intelsat group. Billion-dollar business. 2 major lines of revenue. Voice and data
Acquisition par la station d'Ascension.
All right, we've just been picked up by our second downrange station, which is at Ascension Island out in the Atlantic. This is an ESA station that was built in 1991 when NASA was going to close its support station there. We are now, as you can see, 271 kilometers up, traveling at just under 7 kilometers.
Tous les paramètres sont normaux, la trajectoire est normale.
Just under 7 kilometers per second. Intelsat, the lion's share of their operating revenue from voice and data service, about 3/4, and the rest of it from video services, 142 member nations. And this is a fleet that carries most of the telephone traffic between the developed and the developing regions. Stan Biederman, the mission manager.
Tous les paramètres sont normaux.
It has provided global satellite telecom service since 1965, early bird, if you remember that satellite. And a lot of firsts for the company, the first international TV broadcast via satellite, the pictures from the moon, Neil Armstrong, the Olympic Games, and most recently the Hong Kong handover during this summer, all that courtesy of Intelsat. Today the fleet with 26 satellites, there are 9 Intelsat 5s, 5 6s, 1 K, 8 7s, 3 8s up there, and tonight the 4th on its way.
Tous les paramètres sont normaux, il reste 5 minutes de propulsion.
5 minutes of gas left in the 3rd stage. The 804 satellite is the 4th in a series of 6 Intelsat 8s built by Lockheed Martin. It's a twin 804, a twin to 803, I think we mentioned. It's going to replace 801 at 64 degrees east eventually and provide voice and data and video for the Indian Ocean customers. 801 is going to be moved over to the Atlantic Ocean. This is the 61st satellite launched by the Intelsat group, and tonight it and the launcher are insured for the sum of a cool $172 million US. All right, how's the quiz now? We asked you the question, how many missions have flown from ELA-2? Tonight's is the, oh, there's our Polish friend. Yeah, let me do this first. This is
Fin de visibilité, station de Natal.
This is a young fellow. His young Polish name is Krzysztof Owocki. He's 12.
Tous les paramètres sont normaux, la trajectoire est normale.
And he was one of 11 kids, I think, who won a prize offered by a foundation which was started up by the Polish president and his wife. And so they interviewed him on TV in Poland. They asked him what he wanted to be when he grew up. And apparently he said, I want Terry Edwards' job. No, honestly, what he said was, I want to work for the European Space Agency, and I want to launch Ariane rockets.
Tous les paramètres sont normaux.
And I think he said Ariane 5, in French Guiana. So ESA heard about this, and they tracked him down, and they flew him here. So he's one of Ariane's youngest fans. Anyway, tonight's is the 77th mission that has blasted off from ELA-2.
Tous les paramètres sont normaux, il reste 3 minutes de propulsion au 3e étage.
3 more minutes of fuel left in the 3rd stage. 77 mission. The Flight 102 last November, which put up the Sirius satellite for Sweden and the Kakrawata for Indonesia, was the 75th. It was also the 30th consecutive launch, so tonight's is the 32nd consecutive launch for Ariane.
Tous les paramètres sont normaux, la trajectoire est normale.
We are all normal, we are all fine. We're going, Ariane launching Intelsat to meet its brothers and sisters in the fleet. It has been such a, excuse me, a busy year here at the CSG. Just to give you an idea of how busy, the normal cleanup of the pad after launch takes 6 days. We can go to 5 days, but between Flight 103 and 104,
tous les paramètres sont normaux, il reste 2 minutes de propulsion.
Early part of December and now, this rate dropped to 4 days. The entire time, including reconfiguration of the base between 103 and 104, was 18 days. That's the lowest yet. To launch 11 Ariane 4s, that was a goal set earlier in the year. The challenge for the teams, both satellite and launchers, was really one of time management, especially for the last 5 launches that took place in 4 months, along with the qualifying flight of 502, Ariane 5, in between 4 commercial launches. Now, for this last campaign, everybody was working Saturdays. I think there was 1 Saturday in 6 weeks that was not a working day.
Tous les paramètres sont normaux.
since Flight 100, the teams have been here working full-time. They did the maintenance work in a shorter time on the pad than usual to launch the 11 Ariane 4s. This is because part of the maintenance was done in parallel with the campaign, the launch campaign. It's usually done before. But the point you want to make is that this is not an added pressure. Arianespace is staffed for it, and we can accelerate. 1 minute left in the third stage burn.
Acquisition par la station de Libreville.
We have just been picked up by the last telemetry station down the road in Libreville. That's on the western coast of Africa in Gabon. And that's the station that I think will...
Tous les paramètres sont normaux.
This is an ESA station which was installed in 1987. Ariane, as you can see now, 269 kilometers up. Libreville, I think, will see the separation of Intelsat. Coming up towards separation of the satellite now.
Extinction du troisième étage.
There's the third stage burnout, and we have about another 2 minutes. As you can see, the cursor is going to climb up to the point where it says Intelsat. We mentioned this is the 74th Ariane 4, but only the 7th 42L configuration. Just briefly, the others, the 6 others, Flight 100, the Intelsat 803, of course, last September. But before that, you got to go back to 1995, where there were 3 launches of a 42L. Flight 79 in October of 95, that was an Astra. Flight 78, back-to-back flights, that was a Telstar in September, and Flight 76 was a Panamsat 6 in August of 1970.
Tous les paramètres sont normaux.
Before that, Flight 67 in 94, September of 94, that was another Telstar. And the first use of 42L was in May of 93. That was an Astra 1C.
Fin de visibilité de la station d'ascension.
Went up with Astra 1CNR
Fin de la manœuvre d'orientation.
which was the little ham radio satellite. It's not the most commonly used of Ariane versions. About another minute now before separation. We're at 365 kilometers up, almost 10 kilometers a second.
Début de mise en rotation.
Almost 10 kilometers a second. After third stage separation, you remember our mass profile, we started at 334 tons. We're down to 5.4 tons now. 3.4 tons of that is the satellite. Terry Edwards, I want to see him blow a big bubble when the thing finally gets separated.
Séparation Intelsat 804.
Very good. Okay, you heard the applause. No bubbles, but I'm sure there'll be champagne and cigars later. The good news, Ariane 42L has successfully separated Intelsat 804. Now that the satellite is up there, let me just briefly tell you what it's going to do. The first acquisition will be by Perth in Australia. That'll be about 39 minutes after liftoff. 3, I believe, kick motors, apogee motor firings on the 22nd, 23rd, and, sorry, that would be the 23rd and 24th and, I guess, 28th of December. Solar array deployment will be on the 28th, I believe, or the 29th. Then the testing will begin, the bus testing will begin the end of this month. Payload testing will begin around about the 7th of January, last about 2 weeks. Drift maneuvers start about the 21st, 22nd of January, and Intelsat 804 should be ready for service on February 8th. She was separated just off the west coast of Africa, and that was, of course, seen by our Libreville station there. We're going to go to some launch replays, probably soon. We will have at least one, and hopefully 2 replays from, we hope, two different points on the base here. One is from a spot called Toucan, which is very close to the base, and the other one, the one that you saw already from that camera on the launch pad. There's smiles all around between the Arianespace people and the satellite crew.
Acquisition par la station de Malindi.
All right, we've just had acquisition by the Malindi station. This is a new station in Kenya, which was added for the Ariane 5 program, I believe. So Intelsat is up. We're waiting now for the statements. We're going to have a word from, after the replay. We'll go to the replays first, and then we'll have a word from Jean-Marie Luton, Arianespace chairman. That'll be by phone link up from Evry, the headquarters outside Paris. Then we should be hearing from Terry Edwards. And then we will say goodbye. The successful flight tonight for Ariane, the launch record, 104 Arianes launched after tonight. Here comes the replay.
Tous les paramètres sont normaux. Tous les paramètres sont normaux, la trajectoire est normale.
Lovely shots as she goes in and out of the clouds. I don't know if we're going to get our second replay or not, but as soon as we do, we will, of course, run it for you. With tonight's successful launch, 104 Arianes have gone up, 74 Ariane 4s, 138 satellites in all, plus 27 auxiliary payloads. That was not the case tonight, of course, have been successfully launched into orbit. The breakdown by builders, just one note, Lockheed Martin Telecom, tonight's constructor, of the satellites, of the 98 satellites launched by Ariane built in North America, Lockheed Martin is Ariane's #2 client with 27 of those. We're waiting for the link up with Evry, I think. Jean-Marie Luton. We're waiting for a second replay for you. Hopefully we'll get that. We'll have speeches from Messieurs Luton and Edwards. And then we will say goodbye. Here's your second replay. That was a replay from the Toucan observation post, which is a little closer to the pad than we are. I think it's about 1 or 2 kilometers away. Very lovely shots. Well, it was a clear night, and you saw all the highlights of the launch. We're still waiting for our phone link up with Jean-Marie Luton. As soon as we get that squared away, we'll have his statement, followed by that of Terry Edwards. Just to recap the year, you're going out in a blaze of glory for Ariane. 11 Ariane 4s. Tonight's the 12th Ariane 4, 1 Ariane 5. 11 Ariane 4s. Yeah, 1 Ariane 5, that's right. 1997, we signed 17 launch contracts, including 4 for Intelsats, and we mentioned yesterday, 2 days ago now, signing the 3 Intelsat 9s, the next generation, 902, 903, and 904, for 902, they say a fourth quarter 2000 launch. Here we should be hearing from Chairman Luton.
I want to address myself to Thierry Edward and all his team. After 104, which has successfully launched the Intelsat 804 satellite, we have performed 7 launches in 5 months since last August. This means that we are right on the path of 15 launches a year. Thanks to Intelsat for the trust and confidence that you have given to Arianespace, your prestigious organization has always demonstrated a spirit of pioneer and an excellence in technical area. We are very proud to have shared your excellence and success for more than 15 years. The trust and confidence will be maintained in the future. 2 days ago, I had the honor to sign a contract in Washington with your Director General, Irvin Goldstein, for a new generation of satellites, Intelsat 9, to be flown on our new generation of launch vehicle, Ariane 5. This was the second order of Intelsat this year. The 97 balance of the relation between Arianespace and Intelsat is even. 4 launch of satellites in 97, 4 new contracts in 97 with the organization. 97 is really a landmark for Intelsat and Arianespace. Thanks to you, Mr. Thierry Edward, and your team. And thanks to all the other team who so hardly worked and participated to this Intelsat prestigious activities. In Kourou, on the Guyana Space Center, in Europe, among ESA, CNES, and the whole industry. I wish all of you Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. Thank you very much.
Jean-Marie Luton thanking Intelsat and everyone. Now we'll hear from Thierry Edwards.
Thank you, Monsieur Luton, for those very kind words. Good evening to you, sir, and good evening to those of you in Europe. Welcome and good evening to all of you that observed the launch here in Kourou. Good evening to friends, colleagues, and invited guests in Washington, D.C. A very special hello to Betty, Chris, and Katie, my family in Washington. Thank you very much for the early Christmas present. It was 1 day later than we expected, but successes are always worth waiting for, and it is a very nice Christmas present for us. 1997 has been a very busy year for us. We have had 4 launches and 4 successes. And believe me, I realize that successes should not be taken for granted. Successes are earned. Successes are sometimes not easy to achieve. So to Arianespace, all of the industrial organizations in Europe, to the people of CSG, to freelance, thank you once again. You are the best. We have come into French Guiana 4 times this year. Next year, we will not come at all, but we will be back again in early 1999. Hopefully when we return, you will have had a chance to do something about the mosquitoes, which seem to be particularly aggressive for this campaign. But I would like to take this opportunity to translation finally got through, I guess. I would like to take this opportunity to wish all of you the happiest of holiday seasons, and even though Intelsat will not be here, a very happy and successful 1998. Thank you very much.
So Terry Edwards thanking the ESA people. Now here's our young friend Christophe.
In the spirit of the season, I have an early Christmas present for this young man. This young man, I understand, is an extremely bright 12-year-old from Poland, and he has expressed a desire to come and see an Ariane launch. That wish has been granted, and he wants to be in the space business in maybe a few years. He wants to be a rocket scientist. I can recommend being a rocket scientist. It's not a bad profession. So as a remembrance of your trip here and hope for the future, I have two very small Christmas presents for you. The first is a small souvenir of this evening's launch. And the second is to help you keep track of the time between now and when you are a real rocket scientist. You might find this useful. Best of luck to you in your career, and in 11 years you can have my job. Good luck.
And good day.
So Terry Edwards greeting the next generation of rocket scientists, our young friend Krzysztof Iwaki from Poland. We mentioned a big year, 1997, just to wrap up before we say goodbye. 17 launch contracts, 18 satellites launched on the 12 launches. This beats 1996, which was already a banner year. 15 satellites delivered that year in 10 launches.
Voilà, nous y sommes arrivés à ce lancement, mais on est surtout arrivés aux 12 lancements de l'année, qui était effectivement notre challenge cette année, notre objectif pour l'ensemble de la communauté spatiale. C'était 12 lancements en 1997, c'est un nouveau record pour l'ensemble de la base, et nous en sommes très heureux, et puis très heureux d'autres fidélités parmi nous. Nous nous retrouvons en bas pour le pot de l'amitié, là, tous ensemble, si vous le souhaitez, et puis on dira un petit mot tout à l'heure lorsque quelques personnes de tout camp nous rejoindront, mais en attendant, je vous souhaite une excellente soirée et puis de très bonnes fêtes de fin d'année. Merci à vous et à très bientôt.
CSG Director Michel Mignot saying thank you for everyone on behalf of everyone at the CSG and wishing everybody happy holidays. Ariane this year launched for 7 countries: Argentina, the US, Thailand, Sweden, Indonesia, India, and Japan. And 1998 promises to be just as full, with 10 Ariane 4 launches scheduled and 2 Ariane 5s. There's a 503 scheduled in the summer. That'll be with the ARD, which is the Atmospheric Re-Entry Demonstrator. It's the Aerospatiale capsule with a commercial payload. And at the end of the year, 504 with another commercial passenger. ELE-3, the new launch base, is now under Ariane management. The first 3 launches of 98 in late January, Flight 105, Inmarsat, Brasilsat. In February, 106, Hotbird, and in March, Spot 4. So as 1997 goes out with a blaze of glory for Ariane, we will say goodbye to you. This is Joshua Jampel on behalf of everyone here saying thank you for listening. We hope you enjoyed the broadcast, and we look forward to being with you next time. Happy New Year, everybody.
24 Stunden Verspätung ist in der Nacht eine Ariane 4-Rakete vom Weltraumzentrum Kourou in Französisch-Guyana gestartet. Rund 20 Minuten später wurde der Kommunikationssatellit Intelsat abgekoppelt und im All ausgesetzt. Der 3,5 Tonnen schwere Satellit soll von einer Position über dem Indischen Ozean aus Telefon- und Fernsehdaten übermitteln. Wegen technischer Schwierigkeiten in einem Wasserstofftank war der Start um einen Tag verschoben worden.